ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ। Om, may we, the teacher and the student, be equally protected. May we together relish our studies. May we have equal resolve to perform our studies. May our studies be filled with wisdom, and may we not dispute over the understanding of scriptural texts. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us all. We are reading the Yogasutras. We will discuss aphorism numbers 5 onwards. That is from the first chapter of the Yogasutras book. This is our Yoga-sutra study number 4. In the last class, that is on 26th April, one class before that, we tried to get an anatomical blueprint of the thing called mind stuff or the psychic apparatus. Then in the next class on 10th May, we tried to explain a vritti, then flow of vrittis, and then what will happen if we engage ourselves in organizing our thoughts, and what will happen if we don't. We saw that our mind, taken in its totality, is called mind stuff in English, thus Denkorgan in German, Antakarana in Sanskrit, and in psychology the psychic apparatus. We also saw that yoga means restraining the mind stuff or chitta from taking various forms, vrittis. Vritti is one very basic, smallest unit of thought. It appears in a circular motion, which in Sanskrit is called vritta, a circle. From that the word vritti has come. We also saw that Patanjali did not ask us to stop the vrittis altogether initially. Rather, he asked us to organize the flow of many vrittis on an object, on a single object, so that we have a flow of similar kind of or identical vrittis. This is called meditation, which will culminate in samadhi or yoga or freedom. Let me make a thing clear here. The word meditation or dhyanam has two technically and also practically separate meanings depending on what we are meditating on and what will be the result. The word meditation has two meanings depending on what we are meditating on and what will be the result. Let me repeat it once again. I have to clarify this because many people use Yogasutras meditation and Advaita or non-dual meditation synonymously. That is wrong. That is wrong. Why? Let me explain. As I have said, The word meditation or dhyanam has two meanings depending on what we are meditating on and what the result we aspire for. The Yogasutras meditation is a meditation on an object, or in short, an object-oriented meditation. And the result is a realization of one's own self as a free self. This freedom means separation from all that are not the self. And also, most importantly, this freedom means that after one becomes free, one joins the group of legions of free souls who eternally exist as separate entities. There could be billions of such free souls. Whereas the Advaita or non-dual meditation is a meditation on the subject, or in short, it is a subject-oriented meditation. Hence, one needs utmost purity of the mind. This purity can be achieved by Yogasutras meditation also. Therefore, according to Advaita Vedanta, yoga meditation can be a means to attain purity and not freedom. To attain purity of the mind, not freedom, according to non-dual philosophy or practice. Non-dual meditation is called nididhyasana. The significance of the non-dual meditation is channelizing the flow of vrittis on non-dual self. The non-dual self is yourself. That is you. You are the meditator meditating on yourself. The result is a freedom that you, the individual Atman or self, are not separate from the non-dual self or Brahman. The result is freedom from the ignorance that you are a separate entity. That means it is also your freedom from ignorance that you are one of the many free souls. When we think that we are one of the many free souls, that is an ignorance. Let me repeat this once more. We need to understand it because this is of utmost importance according to the Yogasutras and also according to non-dual Vedanta. The word meditation or dhyanam has two meanings depending on what we are meditating on and the result that we will finally achieve. The Yogasutras meditation is an object-oriented meditation, and the result is a realization of one's own self as free, and then we join the group of legions of free souls, those who are eternally existing as separate entities, separate free souls. And the Advaita or non-dual meditation, on the other hand, is a subject-oriented meditation. You are the meditator meditating on yourself. The result is a freedom from ignorance about your real nature. And knowing that the individual Atman is not separate from the universal Atman or Brahman. The result is a unity, not eternal separateness. Once again, in short, what we have understood till now is that yoga meditation is an object-oriented meditation and Advaita meditation is a subject-oriented meditation. The result of yoga meditation is freedom from worldly bondage by attaining manifoldness or becoming one of many. whereas the result of non-dual meditation is freedom from ignorance and knowing that you are non-different from the infinite reality that is called Brahman. The infinite reality. You are part of that. You realize that. You know that. So ignorance is gone and we realize that we are one with the ultimate reality. Then next we discussed about the plan. The Yogasutras follows. Yogasutras follows a pattern to teach us this science. Number one, like the book speaks of chitta vritti nirodha, or restraining the mind from taking different forms. Number two, then it explains what would be the result if we do it. Then number three, it explains what would be the result if we don't do it. Number four, then it elaborates on vrittis, different vrittis. Thereafter it tells us how to practice the restraint or nirodha. Now we take up the vrittis or each bit of thoughts. After we have looked into the anatomy of the mind, after we have learned the vritti flows and the result of organizing the mind, it will be easy for us now to follow what the Yogasutras has discovered about our thoughts. There are many details. It is not that interesting as a story, but it is useful and important for all of us who has a mind and has to deal with it. We have confusions identifying our tendencies and their sources, and sometimes we are at a loss how to save us from predictable effects. Now we will take up the fifth aphorism. In the book, in the first chapter of the Yoga Sutra book, aphorism number 5, because we have already covered till aphorism number 4. Aphorism number 5 says, Vrittayaha panchatayyaha, klishta aklishtaha. The English translation is, there are 5 classes of modifications, some painful and others not painful. Suppose we make 2 lines of dots on a paper, one made of red dots and another made of blue dots. 2 dotted lines, separate dotted lines. We will call each one of the red dots a painful vritti, and the red dotted line as the flow or tendency of painful vrittis. Similarly, we will call each one of the blue dots a not painful vritti, and the blue dotted line as the flow or tendency of not painful vrittis. You will observe that I am stressing on the smallest unit of a vritti, or of a thought called vritti, and the flow of those vrittis. They are like bits continuing. So that will be very useful for us to understand when we proceed further in respect of organizing our thoughts or vrittis. I do not use the word controlling, because you will see the Yoga Sutra has nowhere given us an indication that we have to control the mind the way we understand, suppressing, repressing, like that. Rather, it tells us, teaches us how to organize the same power, the same force, the same energy, and also channelize them. Sometimes we have to give a U-turn. So it is organization, not control. We need to identify which of the units of vrittis are painful and which are not. Which of the units of vrittis. I am stressing on the unit, not on the flow. In olden days, our ancestors used to collect mushrooms from forests. It was not easy to identify which kind of mushrooms are edible and which were not. Many people have lost their lives in this quest or in this fatal adventure. Now we know about the different kinds of edible and non-edible mushrooms. We also know the nutrition contents in each one of the kinds. Knowing about the differences between our bits or units of thoughts or vrittis and identifying them and also being informed about their results, etc., would surely help us. We need to know them. We do know them, but we need to know them properly. Once we study the structures of the vrittis, we will be able to efficiently manage them and channelize them. Most of the times, it is due to our ignorance and misinformation about the vrittis that we land us into difficult situations. Every one of us is a mixture of good and bad thoughts. Which one of these two, good and bad, is more in us and which one is less can be known by our tendencies or coloring of the mind by the overpowering influence of either good or bad. Our tendencies in our behavior show how our inside has colored itself. When our tendencies are bad, we cannot see any good in any person or in anything or anywhere. These types of absolutistic tendencies are found in some of the idealists who are not pragmatic, who do not look at an overall result. As a result, we and not others change into a bad person. For our defense, we tend to project our tendencies as a sanctified common cause. Alas, we suffer from spiritual stagnation or even slip down the path. We suffer, and that is the truth. So we seek solution by changing our situation, by changing our time and place. Suppose it is me with all my garbage inside who want to change the situation. But I forget that it is me who remains the same specimen in all situations, always and everywhere. I am the same person, everywhere, always, in all situations, and who I am, with all my garbage, with all my baggage. I need to change my pedigree. That is all that is wanted in our spiritual life. I need to bring about a lifestyle change in my life. The commentators of the Yogasutras say that there are three main participators in our action and reaction chain. When we respond to the stimulus or to the inputs from the outside world. When we respond to the call from within, that is called an action and reaction chain. Number one, the objects of cognition, or objects that are to be known. That is the first one in the chain, first link in the chain. The objects that are to be known. Second, the intellect or buddhi, in general term it is called the mind stuff. And third is the purusha, which Patanjali calls drashta, or the seer. If you look at the whole process of action and reaction, you term the operation or the act using a general term, either good or bad. Thereafter, by induction, you term the person as good or bad. But if you look at the three participants, you will see that the first one or the objects are neutral. And the last one, the subject called the seer, means the witness, is also neutral. A witness cannot be a participant in an action. Therefore, the middle one, that is the mind stuff, that is the thing that needs to be analyzed and researched upon. It is comparatively easy to identify the initial thought unit as good or bad, not to term the whole process and all the participants as good and bad. That's what we generally do. And then take care of it and do something about it, or remove it. Later on in this book, Patanjali gives us a very practical advice, very, very practical advice. He asks us to practice it this way. When a thought comes to our mind, a vritti arises in our mind, we should think of its contrary thought, contrary vritti, in order to examine the initial vritti's legitimacy. We can do that. This is what is called analysis or reasoning. Like, for example, suppose a thought of anger has arisen because someone has done something in my mind. A thought of anger has arisen in my mind because someone has done something. I am not happy with that. Now, the practical advice that Patanjali wants to tell us is there may be two contradictory ways. He calls them pratipaksha bhavana. Pratipaksha bhavana. Pratipaksha means contradictory. Bhavana means thought. So there are two contradictory ways to look at the initial unit of anger thought. Now let me look at it from my own standpoint. Let me check if my anger is due to my defense against my selfish interest. This is the contrary thought. When one unit of anger thought has arisen, it's just a beginning. So let me check if it is justifiable. Let me see if this anger is due to my own defense against my own selfish interest. Number one. Number two, then let me look at it from the other person's point of view. She or he might have done it for a better or benevolent purpose, or that person had to do it helplessly. Give a chance to the benefit of doubt. This has saved many disastrous situations in the past and will do so always. Yogasutras calls such type of vrittis verbal delusions, vikalpa, or baseless imaginations. we will see, we'll have discussion on this later. Then there is a very practical contrary thought. It is practical because it is based on our own disillusioning experiences. This comes under a type of vrittis called pramana or correct cognition or right knowledge. I am trying to use synonyms, simpler synonyms, so that we are able to understand this. Suppose you are getting the feeling that you may or you are going to be angry. At this point, at this moment, look at this suggestion that you need to give to yourself as a contrary thought. You just tell yourself, if I am angry, I will lose control over myself. Tell yourself, if I am angry, I will lose control over myself. Then it will not be possible for this me to control the situation. If I go out of control, I cannot control the situation. Teach your mind this way, and you will be able to control the anger. The responsibility comes. Responsibility is our ability to respond to the call. So just think, if I am angry, I will lose control over myself. Then how can I control the situation? This is very responsible, contradictory thought, pratipaksha. Practical. Anyone can practice it. It does not take much time. Just 5 minutes a day you practice, you will overcome a lot of your anger within 1 week's time. As we understand, an immediate initial attempt to solve a problem can save us from more headache in the future. The Gita says, Swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. A little bit of this dharma, when practiced in the beginning, would save us from great disasters. We know how difficult it is to erase the impressions of hatred, anger, jealousy, pride, etc. after we have carefully nurtured them for a long time. Actually speaking, these negative tendencies, if not used for a constructive purpose, generally burn the holder. But a mother's anger to correct her child is a constructive anger. It does not do any harm either to the mom or to the child. Patanjali is the presenter of the results of a long line of psychological researchers. Patanjali's sutras are a collection of 196 short, concise aphorisms or maxims. It seems Patanjali wrote his sutras between 400 and 200 BC. But its wisdom is timeless, and it continues to speak to the human mind and the heart through the ages. The wisdom is timeless because there are references of many findings of the Yogasutras that could be traced back to the Vedic texts. The Vedas are about 8,000 years old. We come back to our discussion on the fifth sutra or aphorism. Patanjali has systematically identified many such vrittis or thought units, both good and bad, and placed the conclusions in front of us. Bad vrittis or bad units of thoughts are called klishta vrittis, and good vrittis, good ones, are called aklishta vrittis. There is a comprehensive and authentic discussion on the yoga aphorisms in a book with masterly explanations by Swami Hariharananda Aranya, the Yogasutras of Patanjali. The gifted translator from the original Bengali into English could not or did not translate the words klishta and aklishta. He left these as they are, klishta and aklishta. He referred to this always as klishta and aklishta without translating them into English. Swami Vivekananda has translated them as I have already mentioned. Klishta means painful and aklishta means not painful. The original commentary in Sanskrit written by Vyasa seems to interpret klishta as the vrittis or thought units which bring sorrow or afflictions, and aklishta as the vrittis that do not do that, or rather bring about the opposite of sorrow and afflictions, that is happiness and well-being. For the sake of our quick understanding, we will call a klishta vritti as a sorrow-bearing thought and aklishta vritti as a happiness-bearing thought. This is for our understanding and not to use the Sanskrit word again and again, but this will be easy for us to understand if we translate klishta vritti as sorrow-bearing thought, because that is the meaning from the original Sanskrit commentary by Vyasa. Then again, a thought appearing as a sorrow-bearing thought may actually bring happiness, and a seemingly happiness-bearing thought may ultimately bring sorrow. Let me give you a commonplace combined example of both. Suppose you are living in a group of different independent individuals who are not related by blood or profession or anything. This experience can be had in a group like a monastery, like our monasteries. There may be different administrative structures in different groups, but in our monasteries we have such a system that a monk or a novice is in charge of the kitchen. Someone is in charge of this or that department, and so on. Suppose I am talking about the kitchen. It is a general kitchen in which cooking is done for both the monks and the residents and visiting guests. The kitchen in charge monk is to look after the need of food of the resident monks from the points of views of number one, liking. Someone likes this and someone likes that item. Number two, nutrition. The food should be healthy. And number three, medical need, like someone has need for more of this or that item, someone is allergic to this or that item, someone is old, etc. Now let us look at the kitchen in charge. He has to forget many things. He has to give up many things. He should not be fanatic about his own food habits and choices. He should, and this is very important, notice and be sympathetic to what suits whom. He should not be more caring to any particular member, and so on and so forth. You must have noticed that I use the word should many times, almost every time. If you would like that others love you, you should also love others. This is the basic sense of morality to be followed, to be unselfish. Now, these shoulds and should nots will be a practical training ground for the in charge to identify the differences between the sorrow-bearing thoughts and happiness-bearing thoughts. If you do what you should, then it is, as Patanjali says, based on happiness-bearing thought. On the contrary, if you don't do what you should, then it is based on sorrow-bearing thoughts. Based on means it has its source in that particular kind of thought units. So each kind of the two can generate or bring either good or bad for us. I have used the expression based on and alluded to it as the source. What is this source or the sources? In Aphorism numbers 3 to 9, in the second chapter of the Yogasutras, Patanjali has explained them extensively. For our short information here, I am mentioning their names. They are avidya, wrong knowledge; asmita, or the cognition of the buddhi or intellect as the pure self or the seer; raga means attachment or passion; dvesha means aversion or antipathy. These are the causes. Abhinivesha means fear of death, which Swami Vivekananda translates more correctly as clinging to life. Actually, each kind of the vrittis appear on the surface depending on the promptings of the particular cause or causes at the bottom. When and if you can do what you should, when you can do what you should, then you know that you are not being a victim to the promptings of any of these 5 causes which lay at the root of the sorrow-bearing thoughts. If you can do what you should, that means you are helping yourself to be morally good and spiritually on the right track. We have known the 2 classes of vrittis or thought units as the sorrow-bearing thoughts and the happiness-bearing thoughts. We have also known the 5 causes that lay at the root of the sorrow-bearing thoughts. Now we will see in the next aphorism the types of vrittis that can be classified into 2 kinds: the sorrow-bearing thoughts and the happiness-bearing thoughts. This we have seen. Let me narrate a story. I have referred to the hallowed name of Swami Hariharananda Aranya, a monk under the yoga tradition. He commented on this Yoga Sutra book. He passed away in 1898. He lived in the caves of the Barabar hills of Bihar in India. The dense forest surrounding the hills was home to many dangerous animals like tigers, bears, etc. This Swamiji used to hang a torn piece of cloth on the entrance of his cave to protect himself from animals, from the attack of animals. His disciples knew that he was an accomplished yogi. They requested him to write a sub-commentary to Vyasa's original commentary on the Yogasutras. He was initially reluctant to do that. When asked for the reason, he said that he was yet to prove the truth behind one aphorism in the Yogasutras. That means he has checked, tested, examined the truth lying hidden behind all other aphorisms. That is why Swami Vivekananda calls yoga the science of religion. The particular sutra or aphorism is Ahimsa pratisthayam tat sannidhau vairatyagaha. If a yogi is established in ahimsa or non-violence, even ferocious animals will give up their cruelty in his or her presence. That is, the animal will not attack him or her. The story goes that one day he himself decided to test the truth in this aphorism. It is a very, very dangerous undertaking. So he went farther inside the forest and started living in a cave about a kilometer away from a stream. He used to go to the stream walking up and down at least once a day. At least once a day, if not more. One of the villagers used to supply his food once in a week, some provisions, or some such arrangements were made like that. It is said that he had seen wild animals many times. Hence it is proof that the wild animals too saw him many times. Some time passed this way. Suddenly one day he came back and agreed to write the sub-commentary on this whole book. Surely he had a direct encounter with one of such ferocious animals. And it was proved that the animal did not attack him. So he tested the veracity of this aphorism. Yoga is that serious. Once Swami Vivekananda, during his wandering days, while passing through a forest, faced a tiger. He was then resting under a tree. The tiger came near and stood watching him. Swami Vivekananda thought within himself, "You are hungry. I too am hungry. It is reasonable that you should eat me." He remained anchored to his place and did not move. The tiger stood there looking at him. After a while, the tiger grew disinterested in the poor Swami and left. Yoga has been tested time and again through such dangerous ways and proved to be an effective and dependable source of morality, ethics, strength, self-confidence, etc., etc. Now I will go back to our discussion, and that is about the types of vrittis. There are 5 types of vrittis: right knowledge, confusion, verbal delusion, sleep, and memory. These are mainly 5 types of vrittis or thought units as mentioned here in this book. The first type of vrittis is right knowledge, pratyaksa, or correct cognition, pramana. This is discussed at length under aphorism number 1.7. Three subtypes of vrittis corroborate each other's truth. Number 1. Pratyaksa means direct perception. Whatever we see and feel is proof if there has been nothing to delude the senses. A vritti, when we come in contact with outside objects, there arises a vritti in our mind. That is called pratyaksha vritti. Vritti, a thought, connected with direct perception. I see the world. That is sufficient proof that the world exists. So there is a proof, pramana, that the world exists. So my vritti, the thought unit which is created for this perception, is called a pratyaksha vritti. Secondly, similarly, a vritti will be created in our mind depending on our capability to infer things. You see that there is water on the road, on the street. In the morning we get up and see water outside. Then we know it rained last night. So there are proofs, a priori, a posteriori, that you see a sign and from the sign you come to the thing, to understand the thing which is signified. Like they give the example that when we see smoke on the hill inside the forest, we know there is fire. This is anumana or inference. So the vritti that arises in the mind based on this perception, inference, this is called anumana vritti. And thirdly, evidence of the yogis, those who have seen the truth. The evidence of Swami Hariharananda Aranya is proof enough that this Yoga-sutra aphorism has spoken the truth. So direct evidence, realization. The vritti that arises from the realization is called aptavakya. They corroborate each other. Pratyaksa, anumana and agama. Agama means scriptural testimony. These three things corroborate each other's truth. Swami Vivekananda has explained how the life of Sri Ramakrishna is a corroboration of these three: right perception, validation of the truth in the scriptures by verification, and direct realization. The subtypes of vrittis of what we see with the help of our own sense organs and understand them to be valid by the help of our intellect. Another one is of what we infer from our earlier experiences and already available and checked with already available data, and see what have been proved by direct experiences of people of integrity. These are the three subtypes of vrittis we talked about. Then the second type of vrittis, they are confusion vrittis. Confusion means incorrect cognition, incorrect identification or knowing. Some vrittis appear which are confused about the truth of an experience or data. It is false knowledge which is not established in reality. that is mistaking one thing for another. Then the third one is called vikalpa. I referred to that and translated it as verbal delusion. This type of vritti is cognition of a thing that does not exist. That is why Patanjali advised us to check with 2 plus 1, 3 types of contradictory argument. When an anger thought has arisen, then to check it with 3 types of tests. Number 1 is that from my own standpoint, if I am angry because the behavior of the other person or the thing that happened is somehow harming my selfish interest, then it is not moral. Second thing, from the point of view of the other person, if that person was right to do the thing that he did or she did, to give the benefit of doubt. And the third thing is that to take the responsibility and tell yourself that if I am angry, I lose control over myself, then how can I control the situation? So, it may not be an anger which is based on facts. It is based on assumption. So, cognition of a thing that does not exist, that type of vrittis create problem for us. And a word, someone uses a word and we do not wait to consider its meaning. We jump to a conclusion immediately. It is the sign of weakness of the mind. That's what Swami Vivekananda has said. That is why now we can understand the value of restraint. The weaker the man, the less he has restraint. Then the fourth type of vrittis is called sleep. When the vrittis, when one single vritti has arisen in our mind and we tend to sleep, so that means that we tend to embrace the feeling of voidness. Then the next class of vrittis is called sleep or dreamless sleep. This fourth one, it is indistinct awareness of the state of melting of all activities. Waking and dreaming, these two states have not been directly mentioned. You will see that here. Nidra smritayaha. Nidra vikalpa nidra smritayaha. Pramana vikalpa viparjaya vikalpa nidra smritaya. So nidra is mentioned, but nidra means sleep is mentioned, but dream and waking state, these two things have not been mentioned in this. They have not been mentioned because they are indirectly mentioned in respect of direct knowledge, pratyaksha, pramana, and inference. I can think of I can infer things in my dream from the waking state. And in the waking state, I can have direct perception. So therefore, these two states have not been separately mentioned. The commentators have clarified. So only nidra, means sleep, has been mentioned. And the fifth one is very important. That is known as memory. Memory, that is the chitta. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodha. This memory or chitta, this is the container that is called chitta, and memory is stored up there. Memory is when the vrittis of perceived subjects do not slip away. We are able to retain those experiences. Recalling of experiences proves memory. The recalling of experiences proves memory. Now, these are the 5 types of vrittis. We have seen units of vrittis. We have seen flow of vrittis, means tendencies. We have seen types of vrittis. There are 5 types of vrittis. The aphorisms numbers 5 and 6, continuing till aphorism number 11, have taught us so far. Number 1, that there are 5 different types of vrittis or thought units: right knowledge, confusion, verbal delusion, sleep, and memory. These are 5 different types of vrittis. Our personalities are based on mainly these types and their permutation and combinations. Number 2, what we have learned so far till 11th aphorism, that there are 2 classes each of these 5 types of vrittis. We knew that they are called klishta and aklishta, sorrow-bearing thoughts and happiness-bearing thoughts. 2 classes of each of these 5 types of vrittis. Each one has 2 types, klishta and aklishta. Pramana has got klishta, aklishta. Pramana means right knowledge. Right knowledge has sorrow-bearing thoughts, happiness-bearing thoughts. Viparjaya, confusion, has got sorrow-bearing confusions, happiness-bearing confusions. Vrittis are like that. So each type has 2 classes of vrittis. Then number 3, what we have learned, that there are 5 causes that lay at the root of sorrow-bearing thoughts. They are wrong knowledge, confusing the intellect as the pure self, attachment, antipathy, and clinging to life. Once again, very shortly I will go through this. There are 5 different types of thought units. There are 2 classes each of these 5 types of thought units, and there are 5 root causes of the sorrow-bearing thoughts. I will stop here today. Our discussion will continue on these ideas, but we are closing these discussions, the detailed discussions, or this analytical study within a very short time, next time, and then we will begin with how the samadhi has to be achieved. Yoga means samadhi, chitta vritti nirodha means restraining the mind taking different forms.